Certainly towards the end of last year we were doing over 10 times our monthly turnover from that initial visit, which, you know, if you'd promised me that when I first came in, I probably wouldn't have believed you, but just these small baby steps, they've all added up, and that's relatively consistent now, which is just unbelievable. My name is Jonny McLeish, my business is called Revive, and we are a multi-trade contractor offering refurbishment and maintenance services. Before I started with Action Coach, I was a sole trader. I had 2 subcontractors that helped us out. We were very much operating on a wing and a prayer, with phone calls, text messages, no systemisation. Our turnover was inconsistent. We weren't really getting any progress, we weren't getting any traction, and we knew something needed to change. I had always intended to be a sole trader. It wasn't until a chance meeting with Javier that I discovered that there was potentially more to running a business than being self-employed. He opened my mind to building a business that would generate profit and run without me, and the possibility of doing that excited me. I always knew there was a gap in the market for it, but I didn't know how to get there until I explored the coaching option. It was stressful, yes. We were struggling to get a consistent workflow, so we couldn't really offer full-time work. You know, some weeks would be 4 days, some might be 3, other weeks would be full. We were operating off text messages and WhatsApp and phone calls, so job specs, you know, if something was missed off a job spec, then we'd have to revisit jobs. There was no system in place for doing that, and I didn't really know how to improve that. It was just happening, you know, more often than not. But now we've put things in place to stop that issue and grown the business as a result of it, which I wouldn't have been able to do without this. Honestly, I don't think I would be running my own business. I think I'd be back in employment, or struggling on and no further forward. It's been about 2 years now, and the progress since our first meeting has been unbelievable. I had seen Action Coach, on social media, LinkedIn, things like that. It was something I looked at, but never really explored. The prospect of having somebody, you know, it's difficult when you're self-employed. There's nobody to bounce off, so your thoughts are all racing in your own head, and you know kind of where you want to go with it, but you don't know how to do it. Whereas it just provides clarity. Yes, we do quarterly meetups, and that provides a plan for the next 90 days. You set your goals for it, and you tick off the small tasks that then build up to achieving your goals. And it's only actually when you look back 2 years, you realise where you were to where you get to, and that wouldn't be possible without Action Coach, I don't think. There are obviously other clients of Action Coach with you on the journey. You see their progress, you measure it against your own progress, and if someone's racing ahead, it does provide a wee bit of competition for where you can get to, and also you can see people that are further along in the journey as well, and see what they've managed to achieve from the same position that you find yourself in. So it's been great. Accountability is powerful because when you aren't held accountable, you can float through months on end and not really make any progress. And when you're being held to account, if you haven't done what you said you'd do, it lights a fire under you, and you think, right, well, actually the next 3 months or 6 months, I've now got double the work to do, so it's easier just to do it in small baby steps, and then it builds up to something rather than this, you know, monumental task list that you get overwhelmed by it. But when you break it down into smaller tasks, it does just produce results. With a coach, you commit to doing certain things. If you have to go back and you haven't done them, then you're adding to your task list, and it's also embarrassing in a way. And if you do it, then you get closer to your goals quicker. It produces a deadline to getting tasks done, which when you're just yourself, you don't set these deadlines, or it's easy to forget deadlines. Whereas there's a set finish to do that task by, and somebody is holding you to account on that. It is unbelievable the difference from 3 years ago when I started. The first year was flying blind. The last 2 years, as I said, when I first came in, it was myself and 2 subcontractors that we were struggling to find full-time work for. And now I have 8 engineers full-time. They're all PAYE staff, they're all salaried. I've got 2 managers in the office and an office manager as well in place, which, if you'd asked me what the dream was for the business in the whole, would have been pretty close to where we're at now. But there's so much more out there to explore that I wouldn't ever have had an idea of. I would have thought this was the end goal now, but really it's just the beginning. Turnover and profit, I think, without quoting figures, we had a conversation when I first came in. We went through the numbers. Certainly towards the end of last year, we were doing over 10 times our monthly turnover from that initial visit, which, if you'd promised me that when I first came in, I probably wouldn't have believed you, but just these small baby steps, they've all added up, and that's relatively consistent now, which is just unbelievable. It's not easy. Running a business is not easy. There are spells where you have a lot of work to do. We're still not, I've started the business from nothing, so we're still very much in the building stage. So, but what it has provided me with is the option now, if the option not to go to work and still earn money, whereas that just wasn't even on the radar when I first came in. I have choices. I choose to go to work more often than not when I don't necessarily have to be there, but it provides you with choices. I would say so, not just now in the current climate. However, yes, we've now set the business up that it would run without me. So that was a major achievement, and even something that didn't quite happen as recently as maybe March or April last year. It was still heavily reliant on me. It's not the finished article by any means. I'm still involved. However, I'm not involved in a lot of the day-to-day tasks now. We've got it to a stage where the management team that we've put in place are able to run the business for a period of time, and that itself is great. So yes, there is the option. I can now go on holiday, which I think we discussed at the very start. If I went on holiday, nothing would run, and I'd be working on holiday just to get it back running. Now I have been on holiday 4 times this year. I've had my phone ignored for the whole time, and I have come back and the business is still there, and the guys are all still at work, and it's great. That's been a massive win for me. I think that was something we discussed 2 years ago that was just a goal that I never even thought would be possible. And as I say, away for 4 weeks last year, and put the systems in place so that the business runs without me. Yeah, I had a vision for the business when I started it. I didn't know if it was going to be possible. I'd been self-employed for 5 years prior to this business. Then I went back into employment, and I knew there was something there, but I didn't know how to get to that stage. So I did 5 years self-employed with a part-time helper from time to time. It ultimately led to me pursuing another path for a period of time. I then decided that there was something there, but there was more out there. Other people do it, you see how they do it, you just need to work out how they do it. And this is a huge part of it. My mindset was, I'm going to give it another go. There's going to be a slightly different focus to what I was doing before. in terms of the work that we were taking on. And I saw a gap in the market from the job that I was doing previously. So my mindset was, if I can get a certain amount of income and a certain amount of time to myself, that'll do me. But it was always at the back of my mind that there was more to this. And Action Coach has just opened my mind way more than I ever thought possible. I thought getting to this stage would be the ultimate end goal, and I'm talking in 20 years' time, and to do that in such a short period of time, in 2 years, is all down to Action Coach. You know, if, as I said, if I wasn't with Action Coach, I think I'd be back working for a company now. And we're really just scratching the surface. One thing we talk about in Action Coach is running a commercial, profitable enterprise that operates without you, and that is so much further than all you're trying to do at the outset is make a profit, you know, or make a living, and you don't even think that that would ever be a possibility, and it is. It really is. It was hugely exciting. You know, there are businesses out there, and you look at them as established businesses, and you think, how do people get to that? And then when you see behind the curtain of what people do and the people that follow this process and where they can get to, it's hugely exciting, because the sky's the limit. I would say so. You know, I remember my dad saying to me when I told him I'd left my job, he was not too thrilled about it because it was a great job and a great boss. But there was something just itching at me, and I think he thought, this is a mistake. But it was too late. I told him after I'd already resigned, and I check in with him as well. You know, we're close, and you know, he's been through this whole journey with me. He's not been really involved in the business, but he has certainly been a sounding board. And you know, I think he can now see where the vision was when I didn't explain it to him probably that well at the start. He can now see the progress because he's been watching as a bird's eye view through the whole process, and I think my wife as well. You know, she's seen me when I was you know, just at the start, stressed out, working all the time, working really long days. You know, we've now got a baby boy. Things had to change at that point as well. You know, you can't rely on, you know, hard work and loads of hours. It just doesn't, you know, I mean, I'm sure people do it, but it is a hard way of doing it. And things had to change in order to adapt to personal circumstances. So now we have the flexibility for childcare. We have the option to go on holiday without completely losing our income. You know, it's really been a game changer.